Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another deep dive.
Assalamu alaikum.
Today we're going to be looking at some verses you've sent in
Okay.
from Surah at-Tin.
Ah, yes, the fig.
Exactly right.
Wonderful surah.
It is, and I think it'll be really interesting to unpack it together.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts, just glancing at this surah?
Well, I think one of the things that's most striking is the way it begins.
Okay.
It has a series of oaths right at the beginning.
Right.
Figs, olives, Mount Sinai, Mecca.
Yeah,
And that really sets a powerful tone.
it does. You kind of know something big is coming.
Exactly.
So let's just jump right into those oaths and what they might represent.
Sure.
The first verse states, by the fig and the olive.
Right.
So obviously there's something beyond just the fruits themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
What do you think is being pointed to here?
Well, figs and olives, of course, they do represent blessings, sustenance.
Right.
But many scholars believe that they actually point to the regions
Okay.
where these fruits are abundant. Okay.
So for example, figs, we often associate them with the lands of the Levant, where prophets like Jesus, peace be upon him, walks the earth.
Yes.
And then olives are plentiful in the Mediterranean region,
Right.
which includes places like Jerusalem
Of course.
and Mount Sinai. And of course, Mount Sinai is mentioned in the very next verse.
Which is interesting, right? Because we move from this bounty to specific locations
Yeah, right.
and then to a very specific prophet.
Right.
So verse 2 states, and by Mount Sinai,
Yeah,
which immediately brings to mind Musa, peace be upon him,
absolutely.
and the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
What significance does this hold in the context of the Surah, do you think?
Well, I think it's really about drawing that connection
Okay.
to a lineage of prophets and divine messages.
Okay.
So Mount Sinai represents a place where God communicated directly with humanity,
Right.
and it's a powerful reminder of his presence and his authority.
Yeah, it's setting the stage for something.
It is. And then we move on geographically to verse 3,
Yes.
which states, and by this secure city,
Right.
it's understood that this is referring to Mecca.
Mecca, yes, the holiest city in Islam.
Right. Why do you think this specific sequence is set up in these opening verses?
I think that's a very good question.
Yeah, we go from this bounty and this connection to the prophets, and then suddenly we're at the heart of Islam.
Yeah, it's as if Allah is building a foundation for
Right.
this really profound declaration about humanity
Okay.
that comes in the following verses.
Which is verse 4,
Yes,
and it's just a beautiful statement.
powerful.
Indeed, we created humans in the best form.
Yes.
I think it's important to linger on that for just a moment.
It's so profound.
What does that actually mean, that humans are created in the best form?
Well, I think, the best form encompasses our physical, our intellectual, our spiritual dimensions.
Right.
It's highlighting our capacity for reason,
Okay.
compassion, and this connection with the divine.
So there's like an inherent nobility
Exactly.
in that statement.
It really speaks to the potential of humankind.
And, obviously this is central to Islamic teachings,
Absolutely.
right? That there's a goodness
Yes.
inherent in humans.
And this potential for excellence?
Right. And then there's this really interesting shift that happens
Yes.
in verse 5. But we will reduce them to the lowest of the low,
Right.
except those who believe and do good. They will have a never-ending reward.
Right.
Why this sudden change in tone?
Well, I think it's really underscoring the role of free will.
Okay.
We are created with this immense potential,
Yes.
but our choices ultimately determine our fate.
So it's not enough just to be created in this amazing way.
Exactly.
We have to live up to that.
Yes.
And this idea of the lowest of the low, how do you interpret that?
Well, it can be interpreted on many different levels, I think.
Okay.
It can be a state of spiritual degradation, a loss of purpose, a loss of meaning, even the consequences of our actions in the hereafter.
Yeah, so it's not just about this life.
Exactly.
It has
yeah.
eternal implications.
Absolutely.
And then, almost like a rhetorical question, verse 7 asks, now what makes you deny the Stanimola's judgment?
Right.
What do you think is the purpose of framing that in that way?
Well, that's a very direct challenge, I think,
Oh.
to anyone who doubts
Tell me when you're done. Yeah.
the reality of judgment, the reality of accountability before Allah.
It's a stark reminder.
It is.
And then finally, the Surah concludes,
Yes.
verse 8, is Allah not the most just of all judges?
It leaves us with this sense of awe, I think,
Yeah.
and also responsibility.
Yeah, because it implies that there will be justice
Yes.
and we will be held accountable.
Absolutely.
So we got on this incredible journey
We have.
from the symbolism of fruits and sacred locations to this profound statement about humanity
Right.
and the weight of our choices. And ending with this beautiful statement about divine justice.
It really has been a deep dive.
It has.
It makes you think.
It does. It makes me reflect on despite the fact that we have this potential,
Yes,
we are ultimately answerable for our actions.
we are.
And that should guide us.
Should.
So perhaps as a final thought for our listeners,
Okay.
if Allah is the most just of all judges, how can we embody justice
That's a good question.
in our own lives?
Yes.
How can we interact with others in a just way?
It's something to reflect on.
It is so. Thank you for guiding us through this surah.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.